go. All right. Good evening. I want to thank everyone for coming today. If we could start with a moment of silent prayer, please. Thank you. Steve, please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Swager?
Here.
Mr. Benton?
Here.
Mrs. Davis? Here. Mrs. Thomas? Here. Yeah. Oh, hello. Mrs. Stewart? Yes.
The Johnstown-Monroe Board of Education will hold a joint work session with Monroe Township trustees and Johnstown City Council to review goals and objectives, including master planning, property, and building usage. This is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. Each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 3 minutes. Upon request of the superintendent, the district shall make reasonable accommodation for a person with a disability to be able to participate in this activity. The recording shall be made of each meeting of the board as administrative aid and shall be preserved as public documents of the meeting.
Ms. Monroe, we're calling the special city council work session meeting for Monday, October 28th, 2024 to order at 5:08. We call the roll.
Here.
Here.
Here. Present. Here.
Council, we've received the agenda. Do we have any alterations or amendments to it? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve as written.
Second.
Aye.
Mr. Swire, regarding additions or deletions to the agenda, the only thing I would recommend is we have the presentation tonight, topics for discussion with public comments. I think we should meld those two together so that if there are questions, we can have people sign in and then we can respond that way. I think it collapses and makes more sense. Other than that, I do not have any modifications to the agenda. So 24-10-216 is adoption.
Can I get a motion? A second. Call the roll.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mrs. Stewart? Yes. Mrs. Thomas? Yes. Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis? Yes.
And I'll-
Okay, so we thought what we would do. Yeah. I thought we would do, we have some of you will have to turn a little bit, but we have a Cuomo flat panel behind us there. We didn't have multiple, so we can connect, so no, the other one. I thought what we should start with today is just review what many of us were in attendance for at the, at the last Monroe Township meeting. I thought just to level set some of the slides we went through, and then we have an updated slide presentation today to go through some of our work. Yeah, the one I sent over a while ago. It was sent over a couple hours ago. Let me see. I can take control of that screen. I think. Do it myself. Let's see if I can find it. Hold on. I got it, Derek. I just took control of the screen. Sorry. I'm gonna go through the email. No, it's Okay. This is, when we were at the Monroe Township meeting, one of the things that we did is we looked at our multi-purpose, just to, again, kind of level set for people who weren't there, just as a reminder. So this is the floor plan that we were looking at for the multi-purpose space. And you see the core building in the center there. And then we have, on the side, we have what we call a lean-to building. We have some different options. One is that we could build just a part of this, or one would be the entire length here, which is about 170 feet. So, any questions about that slide? And, who knows, asking that? You can sign up for questions. And then what we talked about was a conceptual site plan. So this is over at the north property, and this is one of the options we looked at. This is where it would normally be the baseball field. So we talked about putting the multi-purpose field here, and then this is the lean-to building as well here that we talked about, and this would accommodate wrestling and cheerleading. Any questions? The other option we looked at, again, this is just review what we went through at the Monroe Township meeting, was to put the lean-to building on the other side. Everything else is exactly the same. And then that's what this looks like just conceptually on the site there. So it just puts the lean-to on this side, but everything else is exactly the same the way it lays out. Another option we talked about last week is what would happen if we put the multi-purpose space or the facility onto the city's property. So this is actually the city's property right here with the boundaries. The multi-purpose space would fit on this property. The lean-to for cheerleading and wrestling and other events wouldn't fit onto this property. So that led us to discussions about to try to put, to rehab parts of this building if we were to purchase it at the school district. And I'll show you that coming up. This is not anything too jazzy here, but just kind of doing a layout of a drawing of the city building. So you have council chambers here, you can see, and then just kind of the other rest of the building. And I'll show you what we did. Let's just review on Monday night, last Monday. So what this is this is the city building, and we took the lean-to and put it inside of the building since there wouldn't be room. So this is your council chambers here as it faces the road, and then it runs perpendicular. You can see it's not quite large enough to get to 170 feet, but we would be able to get 116 feet. So we would have to go across this large span. And for any of the elected officials here, you have a paper copy of this as well too. So I know it's a little hard to see on the screen. It's so much when we shrink it up, it's difficult to see. The other model we looked at last week was what happens if we put it parallel with the council chambers and a little bit bigger this way. So there's a corner here, but it's 125 feet, but it fits either. We can make it work in either direction. The 50 feet is consistent across the building there. But you can see it would take a fair amount of the square footage of the building. So, again, that's just a level set where we were last week. Are there any questions from elected officials or anything you need to review on this? Board members, anything? I'll repeat it again. The question is about, we had that, but I think Mr. seemed to host. What is the size of a wrestling mat? Or I know there's collegiate and different sizes. What's the standard we would need? So you say 50 by 50 would be at least one mat? Mat and a half. Okay. Okay. And I know it might be out of the bounds here a little bit, but cheerleading any different that you're aware of? Because I know sometimes they duplicate the mats there. Okay. I know. Sorry to put you on the spot there with it, just in case.
Probably on the number of cheerleaders.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, the same space we could, yeah. And is it typically 37? Is that about 37 feet? Is that what a mat is? Or okay, so we could at least get two, if not, we can get at least two in there then, maybe three actually. Okay. The idea when we talked about this was not to have to roll these mats up and down all the time, was to leave them down for a significant amount of time. And we
Leave
think,
it down for the season, they're picking up the winter.
Yeah.
That would temper the weather so states against the section. We don't need
so when you say sectional, does that mean like they're taping the mats together or they're?
Depends on what we have to rotate.
Okay.
First one and the newest one.
Oh,
I would say it's locked. The idea here is just cheerleading, and then when that's over, we pick those up and it comes indoor hitting for baseball, softball, and then same, and then same area today. Yeah.
any other questions? Again, just kind of level set. Some discussion from last week. Derek, I'm going to give you control of this again. Are you hardwiring in on this? Okay.
We have conceptual plan. You have meeting to 6 months. You have the other one, they hold.
That's why we have 2 hours. We were going for that 85 to inside. That's what we're saying. We want to go 70. Our current one is less than 60. It's bigger than what we got there. Baseball, softball. They got that. They got the outdoor hitting. Just over 60.
And then one of the things we put together today was just a PowerPoint just for discussion purposes as the 3 entities are talking. So we talked about some of the areas that we see, at least from the school district board members jump in, but talk about some areas of commonality and some areas that too that need to be further discussed. So one of the things that, again, although I can use this, all this, if you need it in front of you if you can't see the screen. But some of the things we were talking about, and I'll just do this at a high level, I can jump in, but we talked about if we could buy the city's property and build on the city's property, as you've seen in some of the models, including refurbishing or taking over part of the city building, refurbishing that, it would align with an objective that we have to try and keep things centrally located. Someone asked after the last meeting about how far it is from this campus over to Oregon, and crossing across 62 is about 0.6 of a mile, so not terrible, but it is getting it to be a busier area, so there is some attractiveness to saying in this campus, if we can, it's close to the middle school and high school, of course, as well as the other buildings here. City building allows for after-school athletics, and again, it's that proximity issue that we talked about. So, we can get to practices sooner, and when you have to walk back, or walk to Oregon or the North Campus to get things started. So, board members, any questions or things you want to add? Anything? Just kind of go through this from our collective. Okay. One of the things that came out at the Monroe Township meeting was talking about preserving green space, and we think the model with working with the city on their property would preserve some green space, because you had seen in the earlier models that we would need some green space we could take for parking and as well as that building, and that would reduce the overall green space. Certainly on the current Oregon campus, which is or North Fields, and we sometimes call it, is because there is no building on there. We're going to need a little bit of a building on there with some concessions, and restrooms very small, even if we don't build on there, because we're going to try to level up that soccer field out, and we'll make sure we can start with a little bit of water and sewer there. a very small building, but generally that the model preserves more green space. Any other thoughts? Okay, go ahead. We talk about, and Mayor Barnard has brought this up before to us about shared services, and we see some value in working more closely with the city. Obviously, we appreciate the partnership, but we've had some discussions about grass cutting. We've had some discussions about snow removal. There's other things. So we think anything that we can do among shared services would be helpful. The council chambers, we also talked about if we did cohabitate in there for a while, that would allow the school district to have a better setup for meetings as well as for professional development area. Quite honestly, it's a nice sized room. Someone had asked me, well, what happens if we were agreed to buy the city building and the city council and the school district wanted to use it at the same time? Well, typically our meetings are on a Monday, yours are on a Tuesday, but we can do this kind of thing. We can move to different locations. We have a lot of flexibility to be portable. So, board members, anything? Okay, next one. This one needs some further discussion. We just try to put some bullets here. This is not an all-inclusive list, so there's more to be thought of here. But we talked about one of the things we need to think about is how we're all working together. Obviously the JYA continues to grow, and that's a good thing. We don't have enough space for them at times. The Greater Johnstown Parks and Rec District talking about updating the bylaws there and some possible changes there for its future. And then for the upstart with Johnstown Lifestyle and the Walking Club, I think we need to make sure that those three entities are working together, how those entities work together, and then how does that interplay with other opportunities in the community. So,
We don't have any coordination at downtown Johnstown. We've just got a lot of different organizations doing different things, and we'd like to, from our standpoint, we don't know. If you go in and want to reserve our baseball field for a tournament, we may give it to you, not coordinating anything with what's going on in town currently. So it'd be nice if we had one entity that kind of oversaw that. That's where we see the Greater Johnstown Parks District kind of being that umbrella that oversees all of that alignment for us.
any of those, we just put these down for discussion.
Everyone didn't hear me. I said that's an excellent idea. All of the things under the clearinghouse on post recreation because they will clearinghouse for all incidents. My years of experience in there, we have one incident. It's got maps. It's got a dedicated 5K route. It's not, oh, I want to run it here. No, this is it. No, we don't want to. Sorry for someone else to do it because it's incorporating everything we need. Times public service, but road closures, those things. So those people are best suited to kind of coordinate that. So not overlapping, having conflict, having no traffic. So,
It would be nice if Greater Johnstown Parks could be the overall calendar source for all the entities. That if someone needs to look to see what's going on that day, they can go to one spot and see, okay, Greater Johnstown Parks knows what's going on this one, this one, this one. And they're the source of that.
And the key to all of this is that we can't share resources because we have limited green space, facilities, we have limited funding for all these organizations. So the key is for all of us to maximize the assets that we all hold and spread it out in the community and try to help it. And as we grow as a community, there's going to be pressure for those green spaces and those facilities. So we need to try to lock them in because we may run out of space as here and space that's required by other entities.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
I think everyone knows we've had discussions with Greater Johnstown Parks about the 10-year cap that they currently have, moving that to 30 years. We obviously have to work with the city and work towards that, but I think we have mutual agreement on that, doing on that. And then there was also the conversation of inviting the township into for the 5th seat. So that's the other discussion to have Because currently we appoint two, you appoint two, and the fifth one's jointly appointed with the board has said, you know what I mean? So there's been some conversation about that fifth seat, if Monroe Township was interested, bringing them into the Greater John. If we're going to rewrite the organization and remove the tenure cap, if we're going to do something like that, now's the time to do it. So that's the other discussion on that. I think if we do that, it brings everything together for all the entities, because it's us, you, or you putting on all the events around here. One of our groups.
It's a very large component in what we're doing, so I think we need to look at how will that level be commensurate.
Any other thoughts? Because again, these are just meant as discussion. I think before we go to the next slide, I think what's going to be important is we open this. I should probably clarify this before that multi-purpose space can open. Should be October, November next year. Have a clear runway. I'm looking at our construction team. They're not nodding, but I think it's possible. Depending on when we break ground and all too. And I think that's a big part of the discussion. The sooner we can get that early site package moving, the faster this can be. So okay, I got a head nod now, so I'm back to Grace's.
I think everyone knows need-wise, we have a tremendous need for every sport, every activity, every group. You know, so getting this built sooner than later is the priority for us. Because we certainly need it. It takes some pressure off some other folks, because we're currently using outside buildings for a lot of our school activities as well. So that's been on our campus for a long time. Yeah, it'd be nice to get them back in. So there's things like that we could do that bring the folks back into the schools, and that's what we want to do. That's why the impetus to build this is here.
Are you asking about the Greater Johnstown Parks and Rec?
Just to kind of complete that thought that we started when that looks like.
Yeah.
Specifically, what's the final some date that says, hey, you board, council, townships that are interested, and all the interested parties, this is going to be something. We'll really try to get this thing possible.
I think it has to happen. With that.
By the end of the year.
I think so. Or your January meeting, you know what I mean? You'd have to, we'll have to all pass resolutions to do it. So I'm comfortable saying we should be able to do something like that by January. Correct.
Yeah, we have Secretary of State as well, but I
We'll have to file the paperwork. Last time it took us about 30 days to get through. Once we said we're doing it, it was about 30 days. So that'd give us 30 days to get it together and 30 days to get it, through it.
January of next year.
Yeah.
January, February.
I think that we don't set a date for
That's what I'm trying to.
Yep.
If we don't, I guess I'm waiting to hear, and I've had a lot of communication, but I'm waiting to hear if the township trustees can or won't or should, whatever. A lot of it is on their decision. That it doesn't move the police department. You need to hear what you all are gonna do secondarily, because we're ready to go on our building on the North Campus. So if we don't have something that changes that plan, it's the North Campus for us, for me.
Yeah.
Let me go back to the recreation district. I know the township are not immediately. Is that something you got to do? I don't think it's we didn't do this. Understand. It is.
Board of Education, want to try to get something on the agenda. Get this done by the end of January, if not sooner. Right?
Yeah, and that's why I'm going to come
Yeah.
back to it so that somebody is notified the township so that it can be parallel.
I think we still hold the January 31st.
Yes.
You're not if they say yes or no, we have to rewrite the bylaw. We still have to rewrite it.
I'd be happy to arrange that. We have a committee associated with the Park and Rec, and this may be an appropriate piece for them to have in their Park and Rec. Obviously, other council members are more than welcome to come to that. But if you see fit, I can get that lifted off the ground, probably put out an email late December for a scheduled meeting for January and include you as well as the township trustees on the invitation, and also the Greater Park and Rec and the YMCA in conjunction with that meeting. Maybe we could have a kind of a kickoff meeting, if you will.
You know what we could do, if everyone agrees, is we could start to draft some of the changes, though, and circulate those, so that we're coming to some concept, and including what the Secretary of State, like.
Yeah, that's what we're
State-
going to figure
Secretary
out.
of
That
State, like,
obviously we need to hear from the Greater Johnstown Park and Rec current board if they have other things that they'd like addressed while we're doing this, because it doesn't. I don't want to keep going back and changing things on this. You know, we're going to do it. Let's get it right. Take the time. So we set a date towards it. And, we wanted to get it right. Make sure the bylaws are all correct. Get everything.
Bylaws were done by our resolution.
No, but we want to make sure all that's agreed upon before we do it, because that's what some of the conversation was last time. So I wanted to make sure all that goes through. It's not every little detail, but enough of it that
And I would suggest that those meetings need to start a lot sooner than January.
Agreed.
They need to start immediately. That our committee, the recreation district,
I would agree.
will start knocking down one thing, and that's the township.
Yep.
Tomorrow.
I
So
agree.
that they can discuss it with the next board. And have direction from them. The rest falls in place.
I'd agree with that.
Sean, you and I can work together. We have the schools in the city, and we'll work on it. Anything else on this topic? And these are just bullets to discussion moment.
I have one question, Dr. Ryan. Go back to one of your first slides. Do we have any kind of current traffic count on 62? It goes back to the first one. Students crossing 62, they had to go back to the buses. We have,
No, I was going to say, we probably need a traffic study, I would think, right?
ODOT probably already has a count from 62 because they just did the study through here. You can get the ODOT. They've got to have the count because they've studied that.
In the last year.
Yeah. Now, pedestrian count would obviously go tremendously up. We estimate more than 100 kids a day would be making that walk if they, going full go. So you'd have, 100 more kids crossing at Williams right there at the intersection there. So the pedestrian counts would not be first anticipated.
if we had brought back the traffic.
And you have to, you have to understand the children or our students are going to be crossing whether the weather is good or whether it's bad. Right? We put a gym in there, basketball. So there's going to be crossing across town when the weather's nice like it is today. And then when it's also very cold. So, but, and dark, right? So, dark is a safety issue too, right? So that's why we wanted to try to stay close to the kids.
Well,
We
we've already-
appreciate everybody's support.
We've already identified issues last year with Jersey, kids crossing Jersey and having issues there. So, I mean, Jersey's not half as busy as 62, so that would be it.
And that's why we're very thankful for the city. That's what it's for.
And I'd say traffic volumes are going to double, but certainly dramatically increased in 62 since those times, was evidenced by my trip here to this meeting. I sit on 62 and wait for traffic. Usually
I
back by.
actually didn't go 62
Yeah, the wood. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's the signal back seven. That's the one they contemplated taking out.
Yeah.
That's the signal that under the study was called for removal.
If we have an increased pedestrian traffic, obviously with the push buttons that throws off the green or the red lights, and then could potentially add to
It will. You have extended pedestrian cross time
Yeah.
based on your walking. So those are the things that you have to look at. And not that the benefit for us is if they're up on the campus, we control all the snow removal. We control, as a school, it's our responsibility. Walking over there, we don't control it. It's a lot of homeowners that are responsible for those sidewalks and those things. So that's another advantage from our standpoint. If it's here on campus, obviously our maintenance crews are responsible for that and take care of it.
There's marching orders in terms of what we need to do. It's some- Parks and Rec. Great. Anything else on this collaboration or interaction among at least these three organizations?
Really, to me, it comes down to when do we have to have a decision made, because we've got to pull the trigger on building this building if we want to open. And not to put Jeremy on the spot here, but if we want it open next year in October, November, yeah, I mean that's.
Jeremy, you could.
Jeremy's with Robertson Construction. He's our
Jeremy
CEO.
Johnson, Vice President of Robertson Construction. I would just say, from a reasonable build time and procurement of materials and things, I mean, you want to allot yourself 12 months. That's not shovel in the ground, but procuring everything you need. And I don't want to speak for the design teams here tonight, but they have to finish their, right now, all they have for drawings is what you have on the diagram. And, obviously they have a lot of work to progress.
You're not going to build off of those?
I'm glad to build off them, but I won't be able to call for a permit or inspection. So that'll shut us down pretty quick. So, and there's approvals. Obviously, we've got to go through the city approval process, the county approval process, zoning. All those processes still apply that have to be gone through before we can put a bucket in the ground. So I'd love to tell you tomorrow we could have it done, but there's a process involved.
And that the reason why the drawings are the way they are is because we've asked them to not move forward until we can determine the location. We couldn't advance.
Sure.
On working on the property or campus there that we have not done anything since. Just continue on some of the things we were looking at as well too. So we talked about why we're supporting the city and the sale of their building and the school district purchasing it, as we were looking at where the police station would be located, and if it's downtown, it's going to be more close to some of the buildings, some of the merchants down, our offices downtown there, if it operates within the former fire station. We also talked about more of a centralized location for the police for Levy Dell and Johnstown Elementary. Obviously, we have a close proximity now, but to have it spread out between the two would make some sense in our thoughts. So feel free to jump in.
That's one path. The second path to me is have you been looking for an alternative plan to see where the police could go if this doesn't meet everybody's. Is there a secondary plan?
I know Sean has met with a local business account who has a lot of space, and they are not interested in selling or leasing their property. So we really are out of options. Because we know Johnstown does not have a lot of locations.
We know we looked for rescue for a few years. Before we ended up at the JYA barn, we looked around trying any commercial space to even, it was impossible to find anything for us as well. Just a small, we're going to build there in the future. We want to be multi-trade or another school, actually, on that site in the future. It's not that I don't want to, I just don't have another 10 acres to build a school.
The police went there, would have to build another building, and right now, those funds aren't there.
That's all. There's property available. The building the police station, based on what Sunbury built there, is going off of something similar. You're looking at $2-3 million. The city doesn't have money for a $2-3 million brand new building. So
Well, that's part of the problem is if they sell it to us, we need it now. They have to be out now. We don't have 2 years or a year and a half to wait for a new building because then we can't build our building. So that's the whole, as far as building a new building, if that's the case, if they're going to end up building a new building somewhere, we're just going to build it at the North Campus because we can't wait a year and a half.
3 million would be a little bit on the low end. Mount Vernon is doing theirs, and from what I understand, it's about 4. And they have a small percentage, about maybe 10%, that's been taken care of in federal grants because they have to build their first shelter, so that they get some federal money for that. But even 3.6 coming back is a pretty big hill to climb. We'd have to build a new building that we could grow into. Now, again, the firehouse would be a substantial building that we could work on, work in until then, until we do figure out the funding for that. But again, that land behind Monroe, that's what's owned by Tech. And then I know Monroe has first right refusal, but then you would rent or sell that too, if that were to be an option.
When we did this, we looked toward the future. Like our fire department has to grow. If it doesn't grow, we look for the county sheriffs to be there. Look, we talked about Johnstown. That was the first thing that came to mind. Johnstown do something. There's also another building up there. But back to Scott's question, if you sell your building and you got this money, what's your for sure plan? I mean,
we don't have a backup if we decide to sell it. But I know we're currently looking. I think that's kind of why we're all here.
And this all came up when the school started looking at what their options were for zoning for the new building and how we could work together.
One thing for zoning, how close are you to that lot line to build your lean-to? Or is it at the lot
We
line?
wouldn't build the lean-to. That's why the lean-to has to go in the
I mean,
facility.
you don't have room to. I mean, are you against that lot line as it goes?
No, that's why we can't build the lean-to to get the setback from the lot line. You can't build the
I
lean-to.
check into it, but I don't think you have to really abide by the zoning rules in your city, township. I really don't think you do. I know it's one-sided. Look into it.
We're familiar with Brown too.
You can't.
No,
I mean,
we tend to try to be good neighbors.
I know, but can you legally build it?
I don't think there's enough room on
Right.
that property.
Okay, all right.
I mean, I can bring up the slide. It's not enough.
I think we only have like 30 feet. We need
And the
45 to 50.
You need variance. Have you talked to the Catholic Church about buying a sliver ground?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Absolutely
All right.
no. We.
Good.
I don't want to get into Dr. Wagner's meetings, but that was within the last month.
I know there were some discussions about buying JYA from.
Correct. We can't build on those properties. It was just to use the soccer field.
That's true.
We looked down. You're not allowed. So that was to not have to build the soccer campus up on the north property, but for building wise, we can't put the
So
building.
lean-tos for the cheerleaders.
Baseball, softball, cheerleading, wrestling. Yeah, it's multiple sports. It's really where we don't have space right now. I mean, cheerleading's usually in the hallway or out in the commons area. Wrestling's over at the JYA barn. Baseball and softball are renting gyms throughout the county, driving all over the place, trying to hit.
I click back up on the screen here. You can see this is where the core building would go. So there's no lean-to on this facility. So this is what the look like. This is on the city's property, so parking lot and all too. But there's no room here. I'd have to look at the specs on this. We ask our construction team to put something together so it's not picture perfect on this. It's just functional, and that's why we asked them to draw it on there. But there's not nearly enough room to put the lean-to. We didn't need at least about 50 feet for that. Yeah, it surrounds everything on the
We bought
campus.
land originally for that driveway for the church. The extent that we're here at the purchase.
There is some, if we were to build the building here, you can see we'd add some parking in here as well too. This is part of the argument with green space. We've already got this parking established from the city, and then we would add some in here too, but that would service all of this building. Any other questions about this? Yeah, and again, if you want, I'll show you. This is what this looks like with what I'll call the lean-to in the building. This is the city building. That's a little It's more of a functional copy. Since we didn't have an actual map, it's in your packet there. But the council chamber's here, so this is the version that's perpendicular, so you can see it was just 50 feet. So there's kind of 50 feet. There's probably a little less than that. We haven't think the walls. And then 116 feet long. That's one of the options we looked at. The other is to run it parallel. I can run under feet, it doesn't really matter, but that gives you 125 feet if you run the, I'll call it the lean-to space inside of the current city building. It gives you it's parallel with the council chambers.
And to be clear, I know we all know that, but, the city offices would remain in that city building. It'd just be the police that move, and then we'd have shared space if need be for the school board.
Yeah.
As the school's growing, our current board offices are in the intermediate school, and as the bigger classes come through, eventually they're going to have to move out of that building and need a place. We budgeted to build a new school board office, but to build that we need land. The old board office that we tore down isn't an ideal place because one, it was a small house. We built a new board office right there. We're either going to have to go taller or buy more land around it and consume additional properties. The only other place we have, and this is why another thing for JYAA to be concerned as well as us, is the only other land we own is behind the elementary school. And that's the land we use for a lot of other activities. So if we don't have a place for the school board to share here, we've got to build that somewhere else. And we're not only just talking about the North Campus being multi-purpose, it's chewing up more land whenever we go to place the school board office. So that's the other concern.
We just had a few more slides and then we can have our conversation. One of the things we talked about, just this conversation with some of the city personnel is the city were to lease the old firehouse, that there would be more room for the police. I think you're tight on your space now. I know at some point it's a community growth, you're going to be adding, we expect to add law enforcement professionals. So we thought that as a takeaway, but that's not really our lane. Something we wanted to share. And then we said that the other thing about putting the police station on firehouse is we know that parking is here, and that the police department wouldn't create a lot of stress in parking. I know that some of the buildings there are going to become more active. And one of them just recently sold, and the Tom Post office is going in there, so you can see more traffic in that area. So having the police parking. These are just our thoughts to jump in.
Well, I think one of the things with Old Fire Station, if the city isn't able to lease it, and the other entity goes in and leases it, you've got kids walking to the North Campus. Plus, you're going to have increased traffic at that location for the new tenant. Is it just a powder keg ready to explode with all that traffic there and the kids walking? Would we have to find another alternate route for the kids to get back and forth to avoid that?
We have to, traffic studies, we have to look at all that. I think we have to look more how we can control it the best we can. So,
Kids are like water half of these systems.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're going
We
to
all
walk.
did it. That's
They're going to walk the easiest path that they
You
can,
cut
no
the
matter
corners,
what
you
we
did
do.
everything you could.
No matter what we do. So I've not really seen a lot of successful, short of fences and barricades that are going to keep people from crossing the shortest distance.
As your guy there, one of your guys in construction, have you looked at this? Our firehouse, it's an old building. I mean, it was built in 1960, I believe. It's been added on to about 4 times. And that's why we were not doing anything with it. I mean, if it needs a new roof, that's $60,000 to $100,000. so forth like that. And as the school looked at the police station, how much time's left in that building before, it's not occupied? I mean, just,
The current city building.
Yep.
We just started to look at that, and the construction team has just done a walkthrough, so
Right.
we haven't done a whole lot with that yet. The idea would be in stages, so if we could get the rehab taken care of, that we basically put the lean-to building inside the building, we'll work on that. There's a lot of options, and some of the board isn't aware of yet, but like we had talked about, if we took over the city property, we wanted more lane to get closer to 170 to actually build on the building instead. I mean, if you're putting that on, and I haven't talked to the board members about that, that's just some things that we've looked at. But yeah, we believe the building could be refurbished. The school district takes a lot of pride in the way the facilities look now too. We even take GIS, the intermediate school, and a facade has been put onto that. So we would, as well as making some additions, making it more functional. So we would look to operate, employ a similar system, I would say, quality on the city.
One of the additional things that that's come to mind since our Monroe Township trustee meeting is that the central location of the police department in downtown again is a strategic piece. I mean, that's why Monroe put the fire department there in the first place. It's centrally located, easier, quicker response time, very quick, easy access to 62 and 37. But then again, on top of it, with the police department downtown, we're looking at the potential of deploying, or at least the possibility of a foot patrol. Officers on foot in the downtown area.
like your bike patrol?
Was that? Well, it offers the opportunity for it, right?
We got one, but they don't.
I know, but what this does is gives the solidity to it. So, the having that foot patrol for festivals, and again, if in an example there where the police department is there, again, the lower impact on parking. If there are festivals like the Fireman's Fest and things like that, how does a different tenant in that building then affect the void of that parking where the streets and all those alleyways are shut down for those festivals, 5Ks and all that kind of stuff there too. Just logistics alone, I think, really begs that argument towards having the police department there in that downtown area. And again, it also then keeps green space there at the North Oregon property as well, instead of, again, both as a parent and a coach for JYA. We scrap the JOA, we scrap for barn time, and that would free up barn time for the wrestling team, free up that wear and tear on the mats, and again, open up a little bit more opportunities instead of then having to lose a soccer field or softball field as well.
Any other discussion?
We don't have water and sewer. Their hands must be filled and compacted while it's still, so we have to dig all that out and redo it. That was meant for green space for actually, JYA, we had multiple discussions about that being a football field or extra green space. What's happening behind the current middle school here, in this green space between here and the stadium, we can't keep grass there. There's so much activity on that. We have bought a water wheel, we're aerating it, we're trying to do everything we can to keep that ground from getting so hard because we got too much activity on it. We want to move some of that over there. So we had a couple of church groups volunteer and pick up rocks this summer for us. We were trying to get all the rocks and everything, and we can get grass to grow. But that's intended to be additional athletic space, as I think everyone knows we need. We don't have room. Middle school football, all those areas that are currently on the north campus, when we make that soccer only, they're getting moved over to that field in there.
The only other thing I'd add too is that's not even big enough for soccer in that area. We've tried. We've had our team laid out, and you can't put a soccer field. We've tried all kinds of configurations. You have to go across that road. You can't put football in there. It's catty corner the way it fits in there. You can just about squeeze
We can get the middle school football because we don't put field goal posts up. We don't put field goals, so you can get a football field in there, but you can't. Yeah, we do band practice. We do lacrosse. I mean, there's just a lot of uses for it that won't be at the north campus, which is the other reason we want that to keep fewer kids walking as much as we can.
And then, this is one of our last slides, but one of the things we talked about, again, supporting the city in the discussion is that if they were to lease the Monroe Township building or the enhancements to the building, I think we've heard about the tap fee, that there would have to be some type for water suppression or fire suppression. Say if the city goes in there, let them be presented other options as well as HVAC improvements there. So that would be an improved property. Whatever it's currently at. I think that's our last slide. So again, just meant to be conversation starters. Where do we go from here?
Well, do we want to discuss the process here amongst the public as we do? We're currently getting an appraisal on the city building, so we know where that's at. We may get that back as early as the end of this week.
Right.
So once we get that, we'll know what dollars where he's talking on that. But the intention from the school is we would buy that from the city. The city would obviously use those finances as they see fit to, relocate the police portion. But the city offices would still remain there. So it'd be just the police forces needing to move, and that's so we could start work on the renovation to get the lean-to done. So that'd be, in the end, what our intention is then we would use that land, and we, in future years, if we get any property on or around our campus, it keeps everything connected to our area, because that corner, we don't want to let any non-government agency acquire that if we can avoid it from a school standpoint, because it gives us access to any of the other development that may occur out there as well.
One of the questions that's come up with the community is they think, where's the city going to get this money to be able to refurbish the firehouse? And the money would come from the money.
The purchase of the
purchase
building.
of the property.
Correct. So we've got an independent appraiser. And if both of us agree to that, that's the price. And if either side doesn't, we'll get a second appraisal. And it'll be the average of the two. That's tentatively what we've agreed to. So we don't know where it's coming back. We've hired a professional appraiser that we both agreed upon. They're going to come back this week with the price. If it's in the realm of what both of us are comfortable with, that's what we'll pay. If it's not, then either side isn't happy with it, we can get a second appraisal.
How much money do you have to spend?
Well, we had $3.1 million set aside for the buildings. So we know that that is our upper limit. Now that's the renovation, the purchase of the building, the renovation. So everything we're anticipating, that'll be actually a cost savings to the school district instead of building a new building. It'd be actually cheaper for us because we're talking two buildings, the multi-purpose and a board office. If we can combine those two, it'll be cheaper in the long run for the school district as well.
Sounds like a good deal. What do you guys think? Is it a good deal for the town?
I do not think it's the city. I mean, I've not been shy
you
about
guys
that.
think it's- John, you're a businessman. I mean, this is a good deal.
The majority of council.
I know the majority council does, but I mean, do you think it's a good deal? 100%. Okay. Go on. Because it sounds like a good deal for the school. I'm just being in the middle here. School, but I'm just not. No, sure.
Well, I think it benefits everyone that's into this conversation. I mean, both from the city, from the township, from our
It's
residents.
just fiscally irresponsible.
How?
The city's-
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of.
I'm curious how it's.
How it's fiscally irresponsible. We're going from, so the city and the police both become transient entities at this point. I think everyone on this council has been anti-multifamily, which, is transient residents. So we are becoming essentially transient entities at that point. We are taking the only asset that the city has, the equity of that asset, and any future equity of that asset, and dumping it into two leases and the renovation of a building that we will not own. So at the end of that, what do we end up with? And I fully support the school having that property. I think that it is, as far as future planning, everything, it makes sense for the school to have that property. 100% on board with that. We just need time to figure out how to make it work for the city also. I don't think that the school would lease space instead of purchasing space. If
We
we
do
offered
currently.
you to lease that building and renovate
I mean,
it,
we're currently
would you be
leasing from
interested?
JYAA. That's what we do now. We lease their space for our
for
wrestling
use,
program.
for use, but
Yeah.
not long term.
We've been at 8 years. We've been at 8 years at this point. We'll continue if we
And
don't
you
get a
invested
building. It'll be,
renovation
yeah.
money also.
we did.
But it's not your first choice, though. First choice is the first. But in the absence of better options.
Correct, and I think that's where you
And,
guys
and
are.
if we had the
Yeah.
funds, this would not be our first option, but the city has no funds to be able to build a new police station. So what other options would we have?
I would add this too. I mean, I guess the question is, do you have to do anything to that current building as it stands? To me, it's not just binary. If you ask your police force, are you going to have to do something to that current building? I walked through there a couple times. I think I was scanning back in there or a setup for that. I'm not being facetious.
No, it's not.
No, I 100%
Yeah,
agree.
I'm
Our
not
police
going to pick on
deserve
your
so much
facility
better
that
than
we're
what they
talking
have.
about potentially buying, but I want to make sure that it's just not binary because I think it's if your income tax issue passes. My understanding is you're looking to expand the police personnel in the future. You have the capacity in that building. I walked through that building. That building needs some attention. Yes, I mean that we would. When we've gone through it a couple times, we talk about gutting parts of it. But I mean that. Part of the thing too, and Mr. Hendren asked this, I just want to be clear, you know, it's when we talk about long-range planning, it's the property that's important too. It's not just the asset. I mean, we're looking at what does that mean. The Board of Education has been very clear that they'd like to stay small, controlled, so we're trying to, we appreciate the partnership with all about managing growth, right? The other part of it, I would say, is that we're going to have to build, you've seen our plans that we've laid out, that we're going to have to build 2 more buildings that we can project this district is going to grow to need, and that would be a brand new high school at some point. The current high school becomes a middle school and then the elementary. But the high school, we'd like to stay in and around that campus if possible. Otherwise, our costs are going to be significant, right? Because we're going to have to replicate from the athletic complex, and that's too nice of an athletic complex to make the middle school hold a complex. So just to be clear about it, it's also the real estate. It's just not that piece.
It's a good deal for us.
Well, honestly, we feel it's part of this partnership.
It's a good deal for the city too, right? Because we're going to work with the city. We're going to, help renovate the building. They're going to stay in the building, see the future. We have our current organization in the intermediate school. So it's a win-win, I think, for all organizations. It gives them time to think about what do we do in the future? What does the Johnstown city look like, right? We're going to have some funding. We're going to have some time to plan out what we want to do with that funding. And, I think it's a win-win for both organizations.
Okay.
Yeah, we've checked on every piece of property. Yeah. We don't have time. I mean, this is the number one thing we hear. I mean, it's space for these is town. Yeah. Yeah, that's not tied to this. Yeah.
We're going to move forward with this police department relocation. You guys have, I believe, have police in name, right? From our side?
Well, no, this one doesn't help.
But
Yeah,
there's
we're
no
only building
contingency
on the
there.
north campus if they can't move in.
The proposal did not include a contingency. I don't
I mean, not to get into your fine. If we don't buy your building, there's the money that you guys were going to utilize. If we built at the north campus, you don't have the money from us purchasing your building. Not to say you couldn't do it other ways, but that would certainly be very difficult to move up there without the dollars to purchase of the building. Correct.
Because we have the construction partnership in place we did with the city asked and looked at a range of cost to refurbish the old firehouse. It's $250,000. I'm working on $560. Sometimes those top of my head, but those are close ranges, so it's just a range. Yeah, if you look at the appraised value of the property, we're shooting against ourselves there, but the appraised property is all buildings worth more. I think they agree with the auditor. I don't have the tricks here, but what it says is much more increase.
When will the township know that they're going to put you up to something by November 1st?
For a contract, we have to.
Will they accept it? Just around it. Do you have to tell us Thursday night, or do you have some Friday night?
But we don't meet again until four, so.
When did Brett find out?
Yeah,
Their council's here. Well, all right, this is me speaking only. We've heard from.
You had to do the next and check like profit general area.
We would like any connected property, which negotiate against it in a public meeting. So any connected property, we would like to do it because of the athletic, the stadium. It's another $30 million. If we move somewhere else, it's $30 million more that we don't have to spend. Yeah.
So I want everyone to think about food. No, but if all this talk comes down to you guys. The
November 1st, if we don't hear from otherwise.
November 1st, 4 days from now, we'll get on that building is up there. And then we know everything is just here. And the stars behind new high school is something. Continuous problem here. Picture 40 years.
Well, that's why we're here today.
I understand that. I just want everyone.
We don't like
I
it.
just want everyone at the table to think about 40 years.
Or just think back to 1904. Yeah, no, I mean, but it was here. We were here. Yeah,
Many of us at the table are here.
for 70s.
Where it wasn't as active. I personally do not think that's ideal. I would say one thing.
You can see, we're trying to be good stewards of the public's funds, right? Because the school district is Monroe Township, right? It is the city. It's Jersey and Liberty Township too. So we're trying to take the funding that we have, the resources that we have, and get the biggest bang for the buck. So that's what we're trying to do here. That's why we're trying to work with the city. And we're so thankful that the city is willing to work with us. Because again, we're trying to get as much assets for our community as possible with the limited funding that we have. They do have something. They're going to have funding from the sale of the building. They're also going to have access to the building.
Oh, we can say it's not.
I don't know why they would not be able to do that. Because
Fund or something like that.
Yeah.
that's what we do as a school. You know,
We move things around, right? The finance committee does, right?
One of the things I want to make sure that it's clear that everyone understands about why the timing is important is because there's we often refer to as economies of scale. We have that high school edition is going to open in the summer. We are prepared to open that in August. Now, if we can use our similar equipment, supervisors, superintendents, we can also incorporate this other project. That was the original plan, was to put the board office in the build with the high school edition. We thought it would come out a little later, probably October. So, but this has been the whole change in things right now too. So it's the November 1st, I understand, it's right contractually, but we're on hold right now. You heard Robertson, Johnson, sorry, work for Robertson. They haven't finished our designs yet. We're literally on hold waiting for this. If we don't start putting things together, it's going to be more expensive. It has some estimates. It could be about $50,000 more to separate the two projects as opposed to putting them together. So if we're going to do an early site package and start to inert, we're going to do them together, whether that's on the North Campus, Oregon there, or whether it's on the city's property. And for us, that is fine.
And we have the same issue with the city and streets. Mr. Lincoln brought it up this morning. If you do a project and doing a small road over on the other side of town, if you can do all those roads at the same time, it saves money from the construction company doing it. You want to try to do it all together versus piecemeal it.
We put all of our plan together in the spring. We have a four aspects of this project. So it's the high school edition, it's the multi-purpose space, it's the board office, and then we're also looking at the performing arts center. We're trying to expand the seating capacity there. Everything in our future build-out model caps the district and the class size is about 350. So we'd like to take the performing arts center we're in about 585 seating capacity to about 700. That takes 2 grade levels in the future. You talk about looking ahead. We hope that's farther away than that's the model. So that's part of the reason why the timeline's important. The answer, quite honestly, is just no, that we're not doing this, then we know what our marching order is. We've got to get the building designed, and we're going to the North Campus. The thing we didn't want to do is not have this clear discussion. Clear discussion. Then we're building North Campus. 6 months from now, it's already done. We're going to finish that building.
I forgot what it was.
I didn't want to.
I forgot about that one. I'll take another one. So one thing, this is just a general question. I mean, can the school borrow money from like the bank?
We can borrow money in different ways. We basically have to put something in front of the public, and then we have to have it voted upon. There's bond issues, there's certificates of
You
participation.
can't
There's a lot
just
of
call
different
Heartland Bank and say, hey,
No. No, because we have to service the debt with public money, so there's quite an extensive process here to go.
yes, that's one thing we are able to do.
Yeah.
But you need to understand, we have the funding in the bank. I'm on the finance committee.
I know.
So we have the funding to do all of this. We have it allocated. And this move, if we can go forward with this, would actually be a cost savings for us. So that would give us additional funding that we can use in other areas to enhance the opportunities that the community may have. So it's a win-win for the community, right? So we can do with the money that we would spend on building the new board office and these other activities, we could spend that money somewhere else within the school district to enhance the opportunities for the community.
All right. Now the question I said we've heard from both sides, and I believe the Y's here, and I think they came to us and got that thing sat there for 2.5 years. We were going around asking people if they wanted to rent it, and it's just all bad timing. But did we hear from the Y what you guys have to offer? That was the whole one of the reasons for this.
Adam, if you want to, we'll get you to sign it. Go ahead. Go ahead. You can work from the mic. That is the sign.
All right, thank you for some time to present. I was told that I didn't need to bring a presentation, but I did bring some slides that I have here, so I'll just kind of read through this. So I'm the CEO of the Buckeye Valley Family Y. My name is Adam Schilling, and the YMCA is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that strengthens the community through a wide range of programs, including fitness programs, childcare services, youth sports, wellness initiatives, aquatics, many others. We offer educational programs, food assistance, community outreach efforts, support health, build skills, promote social responsibility for all ages. We have 3 community centers located in Newark, Pataskala, and Zanesville. We operate 6 pools across those locations. We have 13 licensed childcare sites. And we have more than 30 program locations across Licking and Muskingum County. The entirety of Licking and Muskingum County is our service area, and so we have 25,000 members across those different locations, including more than 9,000 youth, 6,200 active adults. Youth, families, and seniors are the 3 primary audiences that we work with. And so the YMCA was approached by some community members last year in the spring around, and the question that we were posed with was, what's it going to take to get a YMCA in Johnstown? We were at a meeting in Pataskala, and someone from this area came out and visited, and so we began having conversations with different folks. I think Mr. Barr is one of the first people that I spoke with in the community up here. And so we kept having conversations, and during that time, the Y board was seeking to expand services to the youth and the residents within this area. So we began partnering with the Northbridge School District last school year to provide before and after school services, so like latchkey programming. We also offered summer day camp with that school. So we're in our 2nd year offering those services on site. We also launched last year the Y on the Fly program. It is a mobile YMCA that provides different activities for youth and seniors. The Johnstown Library is absolutely one of our biggest sites. Even once school has started, we still get 50 kids a week at that site. And so we work with Alexandria Library and many other different groups to provide that program. Currently, we have 500 members from the Johnstown zip code, as well as the contiguous zip code surrounding it. And we have more than 500 program participants from this area. So we've seen an interest in this region for folks coming to the Y for these services. And so we formed a steering committee made up of folks from this room.
Can I interrupt just one second?
Absolutely.
We have a 3-minute limit to public comments. Is the board wishes that they procedurally we have to make sure.
I understand. It's hard for me to do anything in 3
No,
minutes.
sorry, I didn't mean to take that. Sorry.
You're good. Yeah, no, you're good. And so we formed a steering committee and began having meetings. And one of the things that we did was put out a survey to the community. We had more than 800 responses from residents in this area, right? And I say this area because even though we have a Y in Newark, it serves people from all over, right? There's no really service area limit. Folks come from all over the area, right? So more than 800 responses to that survey. It was a recreational and childcare assessment. And so what that found was that there was a need for increased arts and crafts and STEM programming with youth in elementary school, increased need for music and art programming, outdoor adventure trips, community service projects and leadership programs for teens, increased access to adult fitness classes and lifelong learning classes for active adults 50 plus. And then there was a need for more childcare programs, so summer day camp and after school programs. So our group met in May and we identified 10 different locations within the community that could potentially serve those different programs and opportunities. And so for the summer, myself, my staff team, and some of our board members went, visited, investigated these sites, and we met with Monroe Township because the old firehouse was one of the locations that was identified, and it seemed like a great location, right? An old firehouse really isn't the best type of spot to transfer to like an after-school program, but it seemed like it would house some wellness programs, and so we began working in contract with them. And so the site will feature a wellness floor that will have different cardiovascular strength equipment. We will have babysitting opportunities. So when families come in and parents have young children and they still want to exercise and get their health and wellness needs met, they'll be able to drop their kids off complimentary to have them watched in a safe, secure environment. We will focus on active older adults, Silver Sneakers. It's a free membership through their health insurance. And so server sneaker classes are one of the most popular things we do. And it's not so much about the fitness as it is about the community building, about developing more social relationships, and really helping decrease social isolation with older adults. We'll also have different group exercise classes, yoga, Pilates, and then we'll have youth development programs. We're seeking to put in a youth development space within in the firehouse there, and we'll include STEM, leadership development, and some of the other things that we talked about, like music and arts. And so some of the comments, that I know I've heard recently, and even within this meeting, is there's other existing organizations. There's the Parks and Rec and Johnstown Lifestyle and JYAA, and the Y is not looking to come in and compete with those services. The Y is looking to come in and complement what's already happening. In all of our other locations, we partner with those organizations. We partner with Parks and Rec. We partner with volunteer sports groups. In fact, we lease space at our Zanesville campus to the West Muskingum sports group. They do baseball, softball, and 5 soccer fields on the same site as the Y. We're not looking to compete with that. Monica has been on our committee from day one, and so she has asked that the Y come in and begin offering summer day camp at Belt Field for JYAA. And so next summer, we're excited to do that. We will be providing summer day camp programs to the community here, and we are working right now in partnership with a 3rd location for offering before and after school programming to the families of the students within the school district here. And so I'm not quite ready to announce who that is with yet because we're still working on that contract, but it is a location that is within the city. And so one of the things that our steering committee has talked about is the idea that YMCA doesn't necessarily stay in the facility that it enters into the community. Our Newark Y has been around for 148 years. It's on its 3rd location. We didn't get to the site where we're at 470 West Church Street, until 70 years of being in existence. Zanesville site is on its 6th or 7th location, and Pataska's only been around like 25 years. It's already on its 3rd site. And so we view the firehouse as a great opportunity for the Y to come in and provide services for 5 or 10 years to residents who are really at a complete lack of services. I mean, to have 800 responses to a community survey.
Adam, I had a question on that. Looking at that survey respondents, less than 25% of them are actually in the Johnstown zip code, though.
Sure.
So it has like 200 actually live in the Johnstown zip code. Most of them are from Granville, Galena, Mount Vernon. So are you intending that Y would be used by all of those areas? Or is that, I guess,
Yes.
so people from Mount Vernon? And then the babysitting question I had was, is that just while they're working out or is it?
Yes, that's just while they're working.
Okay, so it's not full daycare
It's
over
not
there.
full daycare yet.
Okay.
Preschool is one of the key programs that the YMCA is seeking to expand, but we haven't looked at that within this community just yet. Right now, we're focusing on before and after school and summer day camp.
One question on the childcare. If it's offered while they're working out, given the floor space, how many kids would be able to keep at one time?
We did not yet know that.
And I want to make sure I understand what you said, that you were looking at using the firehouse for 5 years.
5 to 10 years, yes.
Yeah, so we're looking at a much longer time frame for the use of the building, the city council building. So I'm sure the city is looking at a long-term for the police station. So you're kind of a short-term bridge type tenant, where we're more of a long-term tenant.
The Y will seek to have programming in the community for many, many years, but
Not at
yes,
that site.
but not at that site. That site is right now we have a lease with a 10-year contract. That was
it. That's why I asked. That was the end of his.
that was mostly everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and one of the things that I want to be sure to state, there's a lot happening here, and we as an organization, we don't know what's best, but between council, the school, and Monroe Township, you guys will work this out, and whatever really is truly the best use of the space, the Y will support, whether it's a Y or a police station. We are really just seeking to help the community. There is a decided lack of services, and it seems like there's a strong need for it, and so we've been requested to come in and help fill those gaps, and so that's what we want to do.
question. Of the 10 locations you looked at, are there any other that you still think could be a good fit?
Well, JYAA was one for the day camp, and we are looking at one of those for before and after school. We have a verbal agreement with them, but we still have to get the contract in place. As far as a site for like wellness services, we really don't.
Are those other two, the JYA and the other verbal, are those contingent on getting? They're separate,
Those are separate.
so those
Yep.
can still occur without
Yep,
the
yep.
firehouse.
We kind of knew that we would have to have services provided in different locations. Again, the size of facility that we're looking to start with is not the largest, and so I know when people think of a Y, they think gymnasium, swimming pools, right? And that's not where Ys typically start with communities. Where Ys typically start with communities as smaller buildings, and they lease it, and then they grow over time.
Thank you, man.
If there's anyone else who wants to speak, you can sign in and we move the agenda around. So if anyone else wants to talk. Do that.
Good evening, Jesse Koppel, 194 South Main. I had a couple of comments. I know that Adams and the YMCA have been working with this community for a couple of years. I think that they'd be a valuable community partner. Some of the programming they mentioned isn't offered by any of the other places in town, so it's something that we're giving up in the grand deal right now. We're making some sacrifices, so I want everyone to take that in consideration. If this does go through, I would hope that our partnerships at the table would be receptive in finding alternate locations for them. I feel like they might have been a little bit left out of this whole grand plan, and maybe they should have been included, or hopefully will be included in the future. The other worry I have is the value of the building. The $3 million. If the appraisal comes back at 2.5 million, then that won't give you the school's the budget to buy the property and do the rehab. So that could be a sticking point. I think the tire shop across the street's a third of an acre of useless building. It's going to go on sale for like 700,000. So the comps are going to be pretty tough to make that happen. The other thing is that signing the lease with no contingencies leaves the city at a pretty big disadvantage. I agree that's a great deal for the schools, but when you're negotiating prices, them knowing that you have to move, I'm everybody's friends, but until that comes down to negotiating money. So that's one big worry I have. I still haven't heard a long-term plan for the city administration offices. I know that they're temporarily going to be leased back, but we haven't heard much of a grand plan. I feel like that should be something that maybe should be put into this plan. And last but not least, I've been trying to come up to the school board meeting for a year to request that the school busing radius be changed from 1.5 miles to 1 mile. My kids have to cross 62, and it's a little dangerous, and that's all I have.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Doug Lowe, and I'm current president of the Y. And I think it's worth putting a little bit of something in perspective here, because I think somehow the Y has become a bad taste in certain people's mouths. We were asked to come to the community, and we went into a building that, when we looked at it, that
our understanding was 2.5 years, no one wanted it. Now I kind of feel like the guy who the week before the prom asked somebody out on a date no one else was interested in, and suddenly 5 people are mad at me because they were going to ask that girl out too. It's not our intention to push into this community. We don't do that. We build partnerships. We're not trying to get in the way of this organization. What we are trying to do is serve a need that we were told was very much needed from a number of people. And that's our goal here. So, again, we're not trying to be a point of controversy, but somehow we've become that, even though we had no idea that the city was interested in that building, or that the school was interested in the city's property. And I hear tonight that what a toxic tenant we'd be with more traffic and everything else. And if that's true, then, then we need to look elsewhere, I guess, to provide services.
I appreciate that, Doug. I don't think, from our standpoint, I speak for the schools. I think we all have needs and services, and I don't think it's always going to be difficult determining we need a auxiliary gym. We need, we all have needs and services to serve this community, as you do as well. So I think it's always going to be difficult when we have to make decisions that impact the other organizations. I can speak from the board. We didn't know anything about the Y coming until August, when the lease was passed on, and we were already in conversations internally about it. So while you may have been in the community for 2 years, we weren't aware of it. We found out in August when the lease was, Dr. Wagner got a copy of it, and that was news to us. But that's kind of what prompted us to move along as well, because it was, more advanced than we had ever knew. So just wanted to update you as to why things got moved along faster on our side, and why we were late to asking your date to the dance.
And I also just want to say, I think that there would be tremendous value in the Y in this community. I think we looking at what are the needs of us, and what are our resources. And it's not that there isn't value in the Y, it's just we're looking at who's the best fit for that space. And so we've just brought up concerns, like not to take away from what you would bring, but that we do have to think about considerations of cars and traffic and safety of children. And so I love a world where everyone wins. I don't know that will happen here, but that's why I asked about if there was any other location that you felt it could be remotely suitable. I don't know if the city has, the township has, but if the Y had another location that could be suitable, that's a place for us to go.
And we even heard from the parents tonight that they wanted to increase the busing or reduce the busing radius rates because children have to walk across 62. So if we build on the North Campus, our students are going to be crossing 62. And so a large number of students in all seasons will have to cross the house. So gym and wrestling and cheerleading spot. So that's what we're trying to avoid. And that's why we need to help them. That's our only other option. This doesn't we don't have no other option. We have no other space. That's the best option.
Hey, Monica. I got it. I have nothing. I got it all this stuff. Yeah, it certainly wasn't 2.5 years.
No.
I got it August 5th. August 5th. That's when I got it. Yeah. Within a couple of weeks.
I'm sorry, it's Monica. And I think the point of that was that the building was vacant for 2.5 years or being available for a long time. It wasn't the duration of how long folks had the lease or aware, but it was the fact that the building had inactivity for an extended period of time. So I just wanted to kind of come up with a few points. One is I wanted to reiterate what Adam said, that the Y has been a huge partner of the JYA, been very inclusive of a lot of people within here, and comes with a desire to help the community, not compete with the community. And I had people ask me, well, is the Y going to compete with the JYAA. And there's two things I think about that. One is we use their flag football. Flag football is a YMCA sport. And two, the JYA is a completely all volunteer run organization. And if somebody could run our job better and provide better services to our youth or anybody here, I welcome it, because that is what we all should be doing, is looking for services that can be provided. And I don't really care if they're from Mount Vernon or somewhere else. Youth need to be served. And so the radius of it, I'm not just Johnstown has to be served. People have to be served. Their needs need to be served, and it needs to come from that. And then just one other correction I wanted to say, Tim, I know you mentioned that the school had paid for part of the renovations of the barn, and the school does pay for rent, but the school did not contribute to any direct funds for it other than rent. And we did get $29,000 from the city from CARES Act money. We did get private donations from the Columbus City Foundation, and we have gotten rent, which is a little bit above market, but not a ton above market, because I've already looked at what happens when the school
rent
leaves.
was to include the addition of bathrooms that never occurred. That was negotiated when we signed the rent. They were supposed to add bathrooms and stuff, but never occurred because the sewer line was too small to tap into. That went back, so we just paid the same rent without the renovations that were supposed to have occurred over there.
I was unaware of that, nor was it in the contract language. So, but I can tell you, like, market value on it is not, for the rental space, it's not a lot different for it. So, like, I've already done those numbers because I knew eventually school is going to move out, and so what is it going to mean from a revenue impact? And it's fairly negligible. We can open rent it.
I appreciate that, Monica, and I think you know as well as we do here at the school. Us and JYA are huge partners as well. Pretty much, I would say, half of your activities occur on our property or in our buildings. So we appreciate that partnership as well.
Yes, so I just want to say one last thing, nothing more, but these last two meetings have been great. A few years ago, I don't think it was superintendent, trustees, or vice versa. I've been in a school meeting for meetings. I don't have any kids. But I went to Chandler, Arizona about 2.5 years ago, and they asked us how income was going to affect us. I said, we're fine. We got the best council. We got the best school system. It's going to grow. We're going to have pickups. It's going to be fun. So no matter what happens here, these meetings need to continue. So we'll do what we can. And last week we had a meeting with the water and sewer people. They said that people didn't even know who Johnstown was or something like that. We had a person up there speaking disparaging words about Johnstown. That's what I felt. I left there. My first text was to Donnie and Sean. I said, nobody talks to us like that. It pissed me off. It pissed them off. But we're all Johnstown, and we got to work together and keep doing it. That's all I'd say.
No, I appreciate that, Troy. I think I shared similar sentiments that, I only go to the Monroe Township when I'm complaining as something as a resident, but I also, but I am attending a little more often. But I do appreciate the partnerships, and I shared this at the township trustee meeting that, look, regardless of how this works, and we have to make sure. It's all the same people. It's all of our constituents. It's either living in the township, living in the city limits, but we're all in Monroe. We're all Johnstown Johnny. So we have to work together. So I appreciate that and recommend that. Not that I'm aware of.
I've been here 26 years. First time I ever got to talk to this.
Right. So I do appreciate it. And I do think, again, it's a larger conversation about the greater Johnstown Park and Recreation District, but I think that's another way we can all collaborate and come to the table and work together, because I think that ties the three of us together even more. So I appreciate that.
I want to make sure we're clear on dates. The meeting I went to was August 5th. It was Monroe Township meeting. Before that, I was on vacation. That's not defensive. Just make sure we're on.
Well, and I understand that, but yeah. we were out. We were asking people.
Yeah,
we were. I mean,
I'm not contesting that, but what Mr.
It was a bad time.
Yeah. Well, what Mayor Barnard said is right. The way this all started was I went to the city and I said, hey, we're going to get ready to build on the North Campus. We start talking. That's what spawned all this. We didn't think about purchasing or leasing the for a township building to have that value for it still doesn't for us. We don't have anything else. There's no discussion. The city has some business that they do in the finance meeting.
Yes.
And then more comments.
I don't know. If you guys want to have support, I have a comment. I don't know.
Can we do ours first? Okay. This morning, the Finance Committee met. We met to discuss an OPWC proposal for two different projects as the safety service that's submitted to Finance. The first is to West Douglas Street corridor. The West Douglas Street would be a totally full-depth reconstruction, new curb and gutter, sidewalk, stormwater drainage improvements. This is coming now because this proposal has to be in by November 1st. Everything is November 1st. The total cost of this would be $1.2 million. Before we get into that cost, I just want to bring up something to everyone on council. We have a fund called the CIP, Capital Improvement Fund. This is based on, we have to submit 28% of our general fund to this fund, which amounts to about $900,000 a year, 950, somewhere in there. So about 900,000. Of this 900,000, half of it goes to service our current debt. For past debt that we have, so that leaves us about $450,000 for new capital improvement projects. In 2023, the city decided not to do any capital improvement projects to build this fund up. This year, we have spent a little bit. In the last few meetings, we've allocated some of this money from the 2024 funds, but I believe this morning, I don't have the sheet with me, Sean, we're sitting on about $700,000 in that fund. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, I can quick recap. If not, planning as well. So, carry over from 24, I'm sorry,
23.
Was 220. We round up to 200,000. Anticipated revenues being 411,000, which gave our total funds, calendar year 2024, 630,000. Of that, we had planned to appropriate 411,000. Actual appropriation on that is 348,000 this year. We had some projects come up. We've also worked out some other pending projects that existed. Obviously, prior to this council, prior to my administration, so we want to make sure that those are appropriate. So actual appropriation this year is anticipated to be 8. Variance that's appropriated and actually spent is 7,000. So if we roll the carryover from this year to 2025, for that to be 283,000. We anticipate revenues in 2025 will be 170,000 in respect to funds, which is over 28% tax reduction designated to that. That's by ordinance. So that would give 2025 budget $750,000. Now, some of that is BPO or stabilization project. Have accounted for some of that already in a separate fund. We want to have money specifically for that. Also, probably have like $600,000 expense. This year, that has been accounted for. Estimated appropriations. Again, meaning of it, 750,000 roughly on the books for next year is available. Obviously, there's 7,000 in. So, barring a recession or anything like that, that's an anticipated revenue that would also caution council not to spend the entirety of it. It's nice to have that 200,000. We've had a number of projects come up this year. Had to dip into that, so it's more efficient to be able to dip into that without having to go to a bond situation with emergency. So we always like to see carry over at this point around 200,000 those projects. And that's why PWC, not PWC last year, again, that to clear out kind of the unknown books. We're
So with what you're saying, Sean, we would have our fund balance going into next year with the available funds would be 753,000, 750,000. So that's the funds we're starting with, 750,000. So going back to the West Douglas Street corridor project, it's a $1.2 million project. The city's participation would be $312,000. That leaves remaining $888,000. Of this, the wording's backwards, loan grant. The grant would be for $488,000, and then the loan would be for $400,000. This would be over 15 years at $28,000 per year, based on calculations of our income tax increase, not the 1%, the 2.25, but with the increase in residents. This $28,000 would be allocated, would be covered by any new residents. How did you say that this morning, Sean?
Sure. So last year we anticipated 411,000 as far as revenues for 2024. 2025 we anticipate that number up to 470,000. So that gives us roughly an additional 60,000 based on the income tax. So we are seeing a slight uptick in income tax associated with pointed out as well as new residents as well as some business location as well. So 60 additional thousand running through what we talked about this morning. The reason the $28,000 payment is in there is we really would like to exhaust the entire revenue as far as associated with debt. We would split that 50-50. We get new revenue in, dedicate 50% of that towards debt, and then hold the other 50% on a cash basis. Also add to that, some of these projects have a longer life expectancy. We're looking at stormwater infrastructure, all the sidewalks, those things do have a longer life expectancy, 40 years, 30. That's specifically is. The roadway itself, probably 15 years, and so it's going to have some technical fill, Jack. That's why the 28,000 is associated with the loan piece with these OPWC projects, and I'll highlight that again, as the mayor stated. The OPWC is a great opportunity for the city to take advantage of grants that are out there and available. And we did not take advantage of those last year, trying to clean up the books. So this year we are going aggressively at those if we can. $1.4 million project.
Roughly 401. Okay, so the first project is the West Douglas Street corridor. As you can see in the first sheet, $1.2 million cost. The second is a couple pages back. This is various pavement projects. This would be McCracken Drive, Pershing Avenue, Liberty Street, Fairview Drive, Brewery Lane, and Recreation Drive. These would only be mill and fills, correct, Jack? So these are they're not as in-depth as the full depth reclamation. This whole cost for these would be $350,000. We'd ask for local participation of $91,000, which is 26%. So that $91,000 is the other half of what Sean was talking about with the $312 to get us to $400. So we would pay $400,000 in cash out, and then we would ask them for a grant of $259,000. We would not take a loan out on this because this is mill and fill. This is stuff that's typical maintenance that is like painting your house. You're not going to take a loan out to paint your house versus doing a whole new addition. So we're asking for grants for the majority of that. So the two projects would be West Douglas Street and then those 6 streets that have been identified. And the reason Jack pointed these out, these are minor or smaller streets. They're all together. You get the cost of scale there by having them all done in one place versus going back and forth throughout the city. So the city would have about $1.5, $1.6 million of total projects, costing us $400,000 in cash, another $400,000 in a loan over 15 years, and the rest in grants. They usually typically only approve one of these, of the two usually. We're trying to make this look pretty enough for them so they might accept both of them. But if they do accept one, it would probably be the West Douglas Street based on Jack's prior experience. because of the fact that it's with the school. It has an impact on the school and the students. So, but that's all. So does council have any questions on these two projects? There's two resolutions on these, one for each one. But does council have questions on this?
I do. Jack, water and sewer underneath Douglas Street. What's the assessment? Is that flooding?
Anybody else have questions on council? Open
I'm
this.
glad we're trying to get into that stuff. It's been a couple of years, we've looked at this, talked about it, so I'm glad it's finally something that needs done.
Open this up to the public. Does the public have any questions or comments about these two resolutions? Hearing none. This was recommended by finance to submit this to the council. What is the will of council to do with these? With the first resolution being resolution 2024-43, which is a resolution authorizing the city manager to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission state capital improvement and or local transportation improvement programs and execute contracts as required. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
The second resolution is resolution 2024-44, a resolution authorizing the city manager to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission state capital improvement and local transportation improvement programs and execute contracts as required. And this is for the various streets as outlined. I think there's 6. What's the will of council?
Motion to pass resolution.
Ryan. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
And that concludes our business. Or sorry, go ahead.
Just want to point out, this is not a traditional process. This is something authorized to submit these to see if we want to select this council. And as I move forward with this, wasn't going to bring up again. Is that something we need to done by resolution? Or is that something? We are short on time with this particular piece, so it was this meeting. I wanted to take full advantage of the members in attendance, since it's not.
Is there a template for this, or certain things that you would apply?
One letter. How about if we wrap up the letter?
Okay.
And,
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to
for
do
your
it on
review.
behalf of the school district. I want to know what I'm supporting. So you want the school district supporting?
Get the right.
Yeah. We even talked on related to St. Francis schools and looking for an application. Like, we can count on the school as well. You send it to me and turn it.
Any other business? Well, you can start.
Anything for you guys? I have a topic that got brought up. I saved it for the end because I wasn't pleased the other day. We had an executive session, and I haven't told you guys about this, but the school came into executive session with the city when we met. And when I went up to the Monroe Township meeting last week, 2 members of the public came up and spoke to me about something that I said in executive session. It wasn't a big deal, and I don't mind repeating it now since it was out in the public already, but I don't know how you guys handle executive session, but for us, executive session is executive session. Comments made in executive session stay in executive session. But when I went to that meeting, I was asked, again, it wasn't a big deal, but I was told by 2 residents that were at the meeting that I heard that you said you'd be interested in purchasing the city building even if they don't move. I said, sort of. I said, in executive session, I said, we're always going to be interested in buying any property that is contiguous to the school district. And if you guys we're all in executive session, so you know what I said, but I felt like clearly a comment I made in executive session came out of executive session. And clearly only a portion of that comment came out. I don't appreciate it. I mean, if you're going to invite me into an executive session, I do need everyone to honor that executive session. I can assure you, as our board operates, we don't take anything out of executive session. You can't do that and to invite me in and have something come out that clearly only us and you guys were in there. I'm not saying that I've never had this instance on our board. So I'm just saying, I don't know who said something on your side, but I do think if we're going to have executive sessions in the future, whatever it be on economic development, whatever those executive session matters be, it does need to stay in executive session because it makes you hesitate to talk openly on topics if you're not able to, and only portions of what you say are going to get brought out. Because when you talk in executive session, a lot of times it's a broader subject. And if someone's just going to take one line out of what you say out of executive session and tell people that, it can certainly construe what you've said in a negative manner. So I did just want to make sure you guys were aware of that going forward, because I do want to keep this partnership going between all of us, but I do think it's imperative moving forward that if we go into executive session, it stays in executive session. So I appreciate it.
That's one thing for board members. We've got a lot to think about here shortly. Our next board meeting isn't until November the 11th, and we're obviously going to figure out what's going to happen with Monroe Township and the November 1st date. I may do a special meeting on the boards to check with you. The thing is, I just want to put a fine point on this. We're on pause right now with building that multi-purpose facility, so we've got to make a decision soon. As I said, it's going to be more expensive for us to separate the projects. So think about that, and like I said, might be contacting about a special meeting at some point.
Thank you guys for having us tonight.
Thank you. Do we need to motion to adjourn? Yes. Well, we'll wait.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Resolution 24-10-210 for adjournment.
217.
217.
Yep. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second.
Call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
Say yeah.
Ruth Ann.
She said yes.
Yeah.
Mrs. Thomas? Yes. Mr. Swallow?
Yes. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
I know who made my thing. One of my employees' sons.